and good evening. I'm Melisa Idris. Welcome to Consider This. This is the show where we want you to consider and then reconsider what you know of the news of the day. In our digital age, the latest smartphones and laptops and gadgets are just a click away. But what happens when we upgrade? This year, Malaysia is expected to generate 24.5 million units of electronic waste, which is a hidden cost of our tech-driven lives. Much of this e-waste ends up in landfills, releasing hazardous materials that poison our environment and our communities. So on today's episode, we'll take a closer look at Malaysia's growing e-waste crisis and the efforts to address it. Joining us now is Datuk Mohd Zain Hassan, who is Director of Eco-Risk Digital Management Syndrome Berhad. He recently retired as the CEO of Malaysia's leading, largest solid waste management company. Datuk Zain, thank you so much for being on the show with me. I appreciate your time. Can I ask you maybe to begin by helping us better understand the scale of the e-waste crisis in Malaysia? Based on your experience, how worried should we be about the mounting electronic waste in the country?
Thank you, Melisa. Thank you for having me here. I think you have just mentioned the eerie numbers of tonnage of e-waste that are going to come up in Malaysia. That number eventually equivalent to 10 million of discarded laptops or 35 million of discarded handphone every year. So that is basically the numbers, and very increased significantly, especially in Malaysia. And we know also very well that Malaysia is one of the highest e-waste generator after Singapore and Thailand. So the UN is basically planning, or rather having a projection in 2030, it will be about more than 74 million of e-waste all over the world, and Malaysia is part of it. So I think the problem the increasing here is because of a lot of misunderstanding. Malaysia is more focusing on e-waste coming from industrial, yeah, but e-waste coming from households, there are a bit issue there because less than 25% of e-waste basically collected properly and through a licensed recyclers. Yes, we do have more than 40 DOE licensed recyclers. But again, the problem here, we are having a lot of informal recyclers, which is illegal, unlicensed, which is doing this kind of job with unsafe method. Unfortunately, we also do have improper disposal, either by household. Some of the household even put in a normal trash as your domestic waste going all the way to the landfill, which will eventually deter and dispose openly, yeah, and contaminate the underground water table. So hazardous materials also will be there. So these are the crises that we are worried in Malaysia today.
Datuk Zain, can you elaborate more on the informal recyclers? Who are they? Why is it dangerous that they are allowed to operate?
So I think everybody knows that e-waste, smartphones, laptops and everything, we have three different important and valuable components, which is copper, gold, and silver. So for them, this is a business point of view. They would like to do it. So unfortunately, as there are about 200 illegal recyclers, as in 2020, there is the record coming from DOE and Ministry of DOE. So this company has been done illegally. They must be taken action. Or else, if you want to make them legal, license them and give them a proper methodology for them to do the job. Because I understand this is, everybody want to make money, this is business, it has to be done properly, yeah? So that is the number that we receive. I hope the number has been reduced after enforcement being done by the DOE.
And when you mentioned about improper disposal of e-waste, can you share your assessment about the level of public awareness when it comes to e-waste? Do people even understand what proper disposal means? What has been your experience?
I think Malaysians realize the importance of environmental issues. They know. I can tell them that they want clean area, they want to live in a livable cities and things like that. But what happened is sometimes there is no sufficient location, yeah, for e-waste for them to throw. Yeah? Probably in malls, we should have one. They sometimes don't even know how to dispose correctly. That's what I said just now. They just, when the domestic waste vehicle come, like what my previous company used to do, we can also see laptops as well as mobile phones inside there. So I think low participation of them also there. A very high level campaign must be done. For example, I can take Japan. 2020, everybody knows Japan is having a Tokyo Olympic. Before that Olympic, 6 to 7 months, they are propagating recycling e-waste because the medals of the gold and silver is basically coming from there. Yeah, coming from all those e-waste. You see how different these developed countries has put the awareness of recycling. Very important. Yeah, they can make medals for their Olympic games coming from the e-waste.
Wonderful. Okay, so that is the consumer behavior, or behavior at the household level. How do you propose changing that? Are you talking about maybe waste separation, segregation? Is that something that would help with e-waste, or is it more about public education?
I think it's like this. Government must have a quick law, because I believe there are many things come into play. Number one is awareness, of course, as you mentioned very correctly. Number two must be a policy reform. Yeah. Number three, there must be also industrial and business accountability. All this will bring a sustainable e-waste management. For example, we must have customer would like to have all this. Yeah, because as I can see, there are also a syndrome in customer. Yeah, I don't know what to call. Some people have more than one TV at home. I don't know what to call, TV nesting syndrome or something like that. Yeah, they have one in living hall, kitchen, everything. I don't know whether they have it in the toilet. So eventually,
so it's consumerism, I think, that those.
Yeah, this education, we have to educate them, because it's good to have, but remember in recycle previously, I used to say, refuse first. Don't buy if you don't need them. Yeah. This is the campaign that we must do. Yeah. Number two, we must have a lot of places for the public to dispose this e-waste. But sometimes in Malaysia, if you like dispose e-waste, people will ask, what's in it for me? There must be some incentive. Therefore, what most important very, very clearly is like this. All players, all producers must basically have an EPR system. The government must put that in place. Yeah, the EPR is very important. Yeah, extended producer responsibility, whereby whatever items that bought by the public, yeah, there must be responsibility by the people to take back. Yeah, they must take back. Okay. Yeah, if I buy from iPhone from so and so a shop, I must go back there and send back to them. And I, as a customer, also must put, for example, handphone, 5 ringgit as a deposit. You will get back your money once you give back all the phones back to the vendor.
Okay, that sounds very comprehensive. Is that being implemented at the moment? I mean, what are the challenges in implementing this type of accountability on the private sector, do you think?
I think it needs a political will. There must be a law on this. Yeah, like for example, in Europe they have this law. In Japan they have also a take back law. Yeah, you cannot dispose just indiscriminately. You have to bring back. If the municipality sees an old TV or washing machine in front of your house, you'll be fined. So this is basically something that we have to do. So far, there is no such law at the moment. I believe the ministry is looking into that, especially the OE and the others.
Okay, so when you look ahead, I mean, we've already talked about some of the really worrying figures in the years ahead. For you, what would a sustainable e-waste management system in Malaysia look like if we were to design one that is robust and thinks about all the different kind of behavior components in e-waste recycling. How do we tackle the growing e-waste crisis here in Malaysia with a sustainable waste management system?
Yeah, I think it starts with the law and regulations, as I said just now. Yeah, that one must start. Number two, apart from the one that I mentioned, ERP and things like that, producers also must ensure that the design product is past obsolete. Yeah, these are for me, it's a purpose design for people to frequently buy a new one. Yeah, for example, I have an iPhone 13 Pro, now iPhone 16 Pro. Everybody is queuing to buy all those. What happened to the previous one? Where will it go? So I believe, not good for business, I know, but they want to frequently get a new business and getting from people. Frequent model release also will be an issue. I'm not sure whether this can be curbed. They come from all these companies that eventually will have business rather than we can have that, but we should have a proper waste management policy to take care of all these waste. For example, if I may share you an example, in Germany, they have less e-waste for domestic coming out from their people. What they do, they must have a proper e-waste plant, recycle, but it's very expensive, yeah? So what they do, they import waste from outside, telling them, I have a very good plant system, you don't have, you bring it to my country, you pay some money, and I dispose them properly, and because of that, they are having a proper plant, they can solve their domestic, even though it's small e-waste, at the same time, it also an attraction to other people to come in to invest in their country.
Dato, are you saying that Germany imports e-waste into their country to dispose of correctly?
They do. They import because they said they have a very good system for disposal. So people without the system of proposal come to their country and they want to dispose properly. Yeah. So this is the
usually the waste trade always goes from the global north to the global south. But that's not the case with e-waste? Does e-waste come to the global south from Western countries?
Exactly, particularly in Germany. In Malaysia, there's a lot of e-waste also coming from, in US. In Malaysia, it's about, I think, more than 1,000 containers coming in Malaysia, asked to go back. Because in Malaysia, we don't have this kind of proper plan. Yeah, even our own waste, e-waste coming from Malaysia domestically, also we don't treat properly. We do have companies doing that under the banner of DOE, a listed vendor, but again, it is not enough. The high technology plan is not there for Malaysia. That's why Malaysia has to push back all these containers coming in. Whereas Germany, they have a good system. They allow people to come in. They welcome this because they help, in a way, they're helping the environment rather than this waste going to other third world country or developing country.
Datuk Zain, thank you so much for sharing some of your experiences and your insights with us. I appreciate your time. That was Datuk Mohd Zain Hassan, Director of Eco-Risk Digital Management Sdn Bhd. We're going to take a quick break here and consider this. We'll be back with more. Stay tuned. Welcome back to Consider This. I'm Melisa Idris. Let's continue our discussion about Malaysia's growing e-waste crisis as we examine the scale of the problem and the efforts to address it. Joining us now is Mohamed Tarek El-Fatatry, who is the founder and director of ERTH, which stands for Electronic Recycling Through Heroes. It is an award-winning social enterprise and currently Malaysia's largest direct collector of e-waste. Tarek, thank you for being on the show with me today. Welcome. Can you tell us a little bit about the work that you do through your social enterprise? What does ERTH do, and how does it approach recycling of e-waste?
Sure. So we actually came to find about the e-waste industry in Malaysia in the year 2018 when the MOSTI minister at the time, was very vocal about all the e-waste that was coming illegally into Malaysia. So she actually, I saw an article on National Geographic where she was saying, please don't send us your e-waste. We have our own e-waste, which we are struggling with. So that actually brought the issue to my attention. And I flew here at the end of 2018 to analyze whether there would be some potential solution that I could build. And we eventually ended up building ERTH and launching it in January 2019. And basically, the model was, since consumers, once they reach the end of life of their devices, they would like to discard them. In Europe, the mentality is that the consumer would do the hard work to drive to the recycling center or the retailer and hand their end-of-life electronics there. However, in Asia, there is a different mindset. People actually expect to be rewarded for discarding those electronics, and they also need a convenient service because people don't have the time and they're so busy and so on. So we went out to build a system where freelancers can basically come and perform those doorstep collections. And today we have more than 1,000 heroes that have engaged with us in the past 5 years, and we have collected more than 2 million kg of e-waste, which is equivalent to 50 Boeing 737.
Wow, that's amazing. Tarek, when you talk about e-waste, I'm assuming that the type of e-waste is largely referring to gadgets, tablets and phones and laptops and the like. And when you talk about being rewarded for properly disposing of or recycling these gadgets, is it correct for me to say that there are precious metals within this? So I understand there's gold and silver and all these other copper materials that can be quite lucrative if recovered correctly. Is that accurate?
Yes, it is absolutely accurate. However, what we have seen is that when we analyzed the whole supply chain of electronic waste in Malaysia, what we actually saw at that time was that there were like 8 or 9 different layers from the moment that they are discarded until the moment of final recovery when it gets reused as a metal ingot. There is like 8 or 9 layers, which means that there is a lot of middlemen, traders basically, who just buy from one side and sell to the other side after marking up. And what that happened when that causes degradation of quality, because the goods are basically passed through the different layers, and then it is scavenged for those valuable parts. So for example, a motherboard might have some chips which contain gold, but by the time it reaches the final recovery, those chips disappear basically. So they are taken to sort of illegal processing facilities and so on. So the point here was to basically disintermediate all of those middle layers, which are not actually adding value. They're just basically liquidity providers who are just aggregating small amounts and selling in bigger amounts. So basically, we are collecting directly from the waste generator and then handing it over to the final recovery.
So to paint me a picture, maybe walk me through the process. What would make for an efficient and effective e-waste management system? If you mentioned all these different layers that are really quite unnecessary, what would a streamlined process look like in terms of best practices? What should we be aiming for?
So in my view, I think every party in the supply chain needs to be adding some kind of value. So of course, the waste generator is contributing value because they are the owners of the item. And of course, if they exercise their free will to recycle it properly, then of course they are, that's what kickstarts the entire process. And then you need an entity that basically serves as a first mile collector. So conveniently, either a free pickup or free shipping for that e-waste item. And then that entity can then decide, is this item repairable? Is this item reusable? Or is this item meant for metal recovery? And if it's meant for metal recovery, then there is no other necessary players involved except the licensed recovery facility, which are, of course, audited and checked by the Jabatan Alam Sekitar, and they follow all the rules to ensure that once they extract those precious metals from the e-waste, they do not cause pollution to the environment. So these 3 layers are only what is necessary, in my view.
Do we have enough in terms of infrastructure of how we should be disposing e-waste safely and properly? What is the state of Malaysia's current infrastructure? Do we have enough?
So I've actually visited Thailand, Indonesia, Singapore fairly recently, and I analyzed the supply chains over there. And I can already tell you that as far as our company is concerned, we have invested millions of ringgit into building a very scalable system, a system that can scale 10 to 100 times without any hiccups. And this system has been co-developed by one of our telco partners, Maxis, 3 years ago, and now it is fully functional at scale. So I think, yes, there is infrastructure already, but I think what is missing is that most people are unaware that this infrastructure exists, and most people are also unaware that the level of infrastructure that we have, basically to enlist the National Postal Service as a logistics partner to collect from any post office all the people's e-waste, or provide doorstep pickup free of charge using gig workers. I think those two together is very powerful infrastructure, and combined with the 68 license recovery facilities that we have in Malaysia, I don't see any reason why Malaysia can't double the e-waste recycling rate overnight if it wants.
Okay, so you talked about awareness and then coupling that with convenience. How do we make sure that we have this magic combination? How would you assess people's current level of public awareness? Because a lot of the e-waste or the kind of gadgets that we see end up in landfills. So people are disposing them with other household waste. How would you like to educate people about the proper way to dispose of e-waste?
I think what we're doing right here is already, a step forward in terms of awareness. So I'm glad that this is happening, as well as also we partnered with the Selangor state government to provide, extend our services to all the residents of Selangor. Originally, it was just the Klang Valley. Now we've extended statewide, and we're happy to collaborate with other states as well. So I think that there will be a combination of maybe media awareness building, as well as government intervention to really, because government has the credibility and basically the convening power to really push the message forward, much more than a 5-year-old company like us. So we are happy to partner with bigger entities that are able to push the message. But as far as we're concerned, we're doing 100% of the fulfillment. So once an individual decides, or a company decides, that they would like to receive a pickup request or free shipping, ERTH and its heroes are always ready to fulfill that request.
Tarek, how would you respond to concerns that the public might have about data security or privacy, or those types of concerns? One of the reasons why they don't want to hand over their gadget in this data sensitive world.
It is absolutely a serious issue that needs to be considered carefully. So from our point of view, we actually have like a link that we send to our customers, which has how to reset any device, regardless it's a tablet, phone, a laptop, or computer, basically the way to reset any device. So it's usually like a one-click reset, restore factory settings, or reset your computer. And I think that we just need to educate them how to do so, because of course we as ERTH, every single device that comes through our warehouse door is of course data sanitized, no question about it. Even if someone wants to witness that happen, we welcome them into our warehouse to see it. However, from their doorstep to our doorstep, a lot can happen. There can be theft, there can be loss of items. So the most secure way is actually that each individual sanitize their own data before they hand it to anybody, not just to us, before they hand it to anybody.
And you mentioned a little earlier that one of the ways we can affect change is through government intervention. If I were to ask you, Tarek, what specific policy change you would like to see, that you would recommend that we implement now before this crisis grows worse?
So I think that there is 3 things. Of course, one has already started, which is the awareness building, like the Selangor state government. I also know the federal government is very active in that. Number 2, of course, there will be most likely upcoming policy changes. The last time Environment Quality Act had a major change was in 2005, 20 years ago. I think there will be now kind of a revision or improvement on that. Maybe it's tighter regulations with regards to discarding, maybe some extended producer responsibility that forces the manufacturers and retailers to take part of the responsibility in terms of collecting the end-of-life devices and recycling them. And then the third one, which I think is very important, is also to consolidate the market. So basically identify what are the solutions that already exist and are working well at scale, and then in a sense shepherding all the existing players to adopt those models. So for example, our system, when we build it, even though right now we are the only ones who use it, of course with our partners like Maxis, Panasonic, Selangor State Government. So basically how we are able to collaborate with them is through an open API. So basically you're able to put on your webpage a booking form where you can allow your customers to book our service, but they actually don't know that it's us. It's you, actually. It's your service. But the data is through an API entering our system, and then our drivers who are already ready and already collecting thousands per month are going to fulfill those orders on your behalf. So we are extending this helping hand to any company that they don't need to invest millions in their own system. We already have invested, and they're welcome to use it.
Tarek, a quick one to end the show. If you could issue us one call to action for Malaysians about e-waste, what would it be? What simple steps can we as individuals take to make a difference in addressing this?
I think when we are looking at rising sea levels due to climate change, I think everyone needs to understand that there is no such thing as throw away or once you have discarded those electronics, if it ends up in the wrong place because, for example, it has been mixed with other solid waste and then ends up in the landfills, there is actually going to be toxic heavy metals that are sitting in the landfill. And then due to rising sea level, the water will actually submerge the landfill potentially, which will then bind with those toxic heavy metals, and then eventually they will pollute the rivers and reach the human food chain. And then the cost to the taxpayer, let's say years later or generations later, is going to be enormously high. So it is like at least 10 to 20 times cheaper to solve this problem from the very beginning. Luckily, we have convenient service that also pays you in cash. So I think that now it's just a matter of awareness and free will.
Tarek, thank you so much for being on the show with me. That was Mohamed Tarek El-Fatatry, founder of the social enterprise ERTH. That wraps up this episode of Consider This. I'm Melisa Idris, signing off for the evening. Thanks so much for watching. Good night.